So welcome everybody to another episode of the Overthrow. And joining us today, not only is my mate Mr. Newsom there cold once again. How you doing, bud?
Very good, very good.
But we've also got somebody who, by his own words, and I'm going to be very careful how I put this because I find it difficult to read and say, didn't make of his first class career what he could have. The laugh says it all, but he's gone on to be an absolute top level coach, and in particular, top level bowling coach who's gone from coaching primary school all the way through to coaching at international level and basically everything in between. And joined us today, Mr. Stuart Barnes. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you for that intro. It's always quite interesting, kind of referring back to the start of the journey. But yeah, that you've nailed it.
Well, I think based on some of the stories coming out of the Ashes, I think primary school and international cricket have a lot in common.
I'm not going to get in. I'm not going to get involved in all that kind of stuff.
He's still in the game. Got to be careful.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. That honesty, though, Stuart, in terms of your first class career, and one of the stats that I love from your first class career is that you almost took as many wickets as you got runs batting. You were really honest about, and I've heard you say it before, that you didn't do what you really should have, and I've heard you say it on videos time and time again, you didn't make the most of everything you had.
No, I didn't. You don't know it at the time when you're in it, but I was just kind of going with the flow, and I've seen so many examples of what I used to be like, talented cricketers that you look at them, you think, wow, they've got such a high ceiling. And I started playing cricket because my dad played it and I loved it, and I just watched and I copied and stuff like that, and I was pretty good at it. It gave me opportunities, but I did not learn what else went with just having fun with the game, the stuff off the field, the people you need to surround yourself by. Going to a gym, I never really got fit or anything, and I was handed a professional contract. But even then, the opportunity, I didn't really understand what I had in front of me. Being in a dressing room, opening the bowl with Courtney Walsh, Sid Lawrence, playing against these absolute legends. I was just kind of going with the flow a little bit. And then, like most people who don't really work things out, I need to do something about this to stay ahead of the competitors. My competitors were players my age, and I was like 19, 20 at the time. And I got found out. I consider myself as a failed professional cricketer, but in a very positive sense, in that once I stopped blaming everybody else for my 2-year career, which should have been a 15 or 20, I was told I stay on this path, you're going to play for England. Kind of goes to your head, all that kind of stuff. Once I stopped blaming everybody else for the shortness of my career and suddenly looked in the mirror, I used that as fuel for my coaching career, because I vowed never to make the same mistake again, and to constantly review and evolve myself, which, yeah, I'm pretty proud of the stuff that I've been able to do. So, yeah, that's me, really.
Absolutely. I think the phrase I put towards that, it's not a story of regret, it's a story of redirection, isn't it? You've channeled all of that energy into coaching from very early on in a career. And there's not many people start coaching at the age that you started at in the first place, especially back then. What was it that you saw in yourself in coaching that you thought, okay, I've not done it here, but I can put it in this way?
Well, there was a couple of things. One, because I was a natural bowler, and despite the number of first-class runs I scored, I was actually a decent batter as well. There was a couple of things. One was I didn't understand how I bowled. I just copied. I just ran in. I saw a poster of Ian Botham, and I remember to this day, I was at secondary school, climbing the stairs up to the gymnasium, and there was a poster of Ian Botham mid-flow, and it was 1981 during the Botham's Ashes, and I was watching that. I was watching Dad play cricket, and this poster, I thought, oh, okay, and I just copied the positions that Ian Botham were in, so that was once it all kind of stopped for me, there was something in me that I needed to understand how I did what I did. So that was the coaching bit, and so I started my it was a coaching award course back then in 1997. So I was 27 at the time, because I needed to understand something in me. Okay, I'm really curious. How did I do that? How did I swing the ball away? How did I beat the bat with an older ball? How did I bowl that in swing or whatever? So I kind of scratched that itch of understanding, but I needed to understand, and I was still playing club cricket at the time. I was playing Premier League cricket in Bath for Lansdowne, and then made the trip across the river to Bath Cricket Club. Massive, the bits of fallout on that.
Yeah.
So I
I
was still playing club cricket at the time and coaching. Became a qualified coach. Very quickly, kind of moved into the next levels of coaching. But I loved the game. So whilst I couldn't play at professional level anymore, I was resigned to that, and I was okay with it. I wanted to help other players not make the same mistake as I made. So that to this day is still at the very core of my kind of philosophy. So one with the understanding, how the hell does somebody run in and bowl at 85, 90 mile an hour? That wasn't me, by the way, but but how does that happen? What needs to happen off the pitch in order for that to happen on it? And like I say, the other bit was I want to help people, if that's their aspiration, help them, learn from me, really.
Do you think that if you took you back then and placed them into a pathway environment now, do you feel you'd have been able to achieve more?
Okay, so the things that I think need to be in place for that to happen is, I was inspired by my proper primary school teacher. I wasn't necessarily inspired at the time by my cricket coaches at professional level. They all meant good, and that they were doing and saying things that they honestly felt were in my best interest. But you need to be inspired, don't you, by people that are in front of you. And looking back, to answer your question, I think it's young cricketers are inspired by people that engage with them, smile, challenge, support them, have fun with them, have fun with the game. So to answer your question, if I were in that sort of environment, playing alongside other players that I wasn't better than, because big fish, small pond, all that kind of stuff. I don't think that works. So going into that environment, inspiration, coach well, coach simply, and amongst other kind of peers that were similar, I think anyone in that environment has a great chance. So if I were in that environment, I'd like to think that it may have turned out differently, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the ECB and just coaching as a whole, and across all sports, what you just talked about there, the enjoyment, the smile, has really been pushed onto coaches to just remember these aspects of it. Because most of us grew up with something similar to what you discussed. I wasn't involved in elite sport environment in that time, but there was a lot more shouting going on. There was a lot more picking the big lad. There's a lot more awareness about behaviour and how to make kids enjoy themselves now in coaching. It seems like, maybe it isn't the case, but I feel like that everybody's doing a much better job now.
I'd like to think so. And the shouting and bawling from the sidelines, that still takes place.
In every sport, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right. I remember doing some work overseas, and that's just the style. That's just what happens. And so you go into different cultures and things, and you respect that. Of course you do. But you as long as you're authentic with yourself, that's not my style. But it is other people's, and that's okay. But I'm really pleased to hear. I've not really had a part to play in the UCB coach education program for a long while now, but I'm really pleased to hear that actually fun, movement, laughter, smiles is an integral part of it for sure. Yeah.
I think that's key from literally children all the way through to professional athletes these days, though, Stuart. And having been around a lot of professional stuff over the last couple of years and watched guys warming up before a game, I just look back to how it was 20 years ago to 30 years ago, and you can see the boys at Warwickshire, where you were last year, before every game, that warm up was all about having fun and enjoying themselves, and it just subliminally they are being warmed up at the same time, whereas we know 20, 30 years ago that just didn't happen, did it?
No, it didn't. Science has given us a lot, and going back to I needed to understand how a bowler bowled a ball particularly at high pace. That was what grabbed me. Science has given us the understanding of, particularly around performance at Warwickshire level and first class level and international. What does a human need to do in the 2 or 3 days leading into a match? What do they sleep, nutrition, psychology, all this kind of stuff. And on a match day, what you would have seen is the coaches and the support staff trying to take as much pressure off as possible, hence the fun bit. Football used to be the thing. I like football as an option as a pre-match warm-up because mobility, change of direction, teamship, fun, all this kind of stuff. But obviously, there's been examples of lots of injuries, and so the football tennis thing has become a massive thing. It's at Edgbaston, but some teams still play football, and I think something like that, anything fun, competitive, taking pressure off, I think on a match day is really important.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating when you watch around the world and the country generally seeing these things. The variation that coaches have brought to this now from different cultures and different ways of going about it, it's quite phenomenal to say the least. You when you get the 100 turn up at Edgbaston and you've got players from all over the world, you've got 20 different warm-ups going up in some cases because they all want to do different things, don't they?
Yeah, they do, yeah. So the match day warm-ups, there's an individual bit. So, 11 a.m. start, we all get there like at 10:30, breakfast or whatever. And then I'm out there from like 9:15. So bowlers kind of drip feed out to me to do their individual prep, and they might be working on, something or a conversation we might have had, or they might have had with somebody else, and they just want to come out and they just want to put some ticks in the box. It's more of a kind of a feel stroke comfort thing. I do think that because we turn up very early, I do think that there's a danger that players believe that it's a comfort thing. I sometimes think that less is more. So, the old school days of, God, I can't even remember what time we used to turn up, probably an hour before the start. I sometimes feel, all the work is done or should be done. So what you're doing on a match day, well, you're not topping up really because you ought to have already done that. What you're doing is getting a feel for the ground, the wind conditions, have a look at the pitch, building a bit of a plan for your role that particular day. That's all you're doing really. But I sometimes think that actually doing 2 hours, being out on the ground 2 hours before the start, may be a little bit too much. But, again, it's how do you get players in the right mindset? Yeah. Some players like to do more. Absolutely. Some players like to do more, some less. So, they'll work it out eventually.
Yeah.
There's two on your website. You've got two testimonials from two who I think are very, very interesting players, Bo Webster and Sam Curran. I think they're probably two cricketers in the world who have probably got the most out of themselves. Sam Curran's a great example of someone who physically, from the layman's side of things, you wouldn't think is a guy bowling death overs in T20 cricket. He's 5'9". He's not rapid. I mean, he's sharp. I wouldn't want to face him, but he's, obviously his left arm is batting just has gone through the roof recently, and mentally fielding obviously is incredible.
Yeah.
And Bo Webster, just, I mean, you just look at Bo Webster's numbers, he's basically the best all-rounder in world cricket. He looks a bit weird, which I think is why he hasn't got picked. I mean, that is, if he looked like an orthodox cricketer, he wasn't, he's massive, isn't he? I think he would have played for Australia for years. We'd have had him in the side for years. What's it like working with people like that?
Well, you're right. They're just normal people with a gift. Yeah. They're normal people with gifts. If you have a conversation with them, just like everyone else, they like to have a laugh and a joke. And I think that the difference is there's a real steeliness. They know when they've got to turn it on. So I really enjoy. I used to be, so at the start of my coaching career, if I'm honest with myself, I used to be quite intimidated by the fact that I was working with international cricketers, and I just had 2 years of pro cricket under my belt. But once that was about me, that wasn't about the person in front of them, because all of these players, when I look back and write a list of the people that I've worked with and spoke with and ask questions of, I mean, it's bloody hell, does that really happen? But they're all there for the same reason. They all want to get better. they're normal people that just have this massive desire to, I might be here now, but I'm not settling. How can you help me get better, Barnesy? And that's it, really. So that's the education bit that was really important to me, because I needed to understand, because I hadn't experienced what they were going to experience on the pitch. So what could I give them? What I could give them detail. I could ask them questions. I could give them honest feedback. Have you tried this? Well, I've heard this from another player. Have you tried that? Sam was so talented. When I was at Surrey, Sam and Tom were coming through the Surrey Academy at the time, and there was a real golden era of players coming through that system. You could tell Tom had the edge as a personality, and we could see that on the pitch. And that's why he's been so
not telling us anything we don't know there.
That's why he's been so successful and really got the most from what he had. Yeah. But you could just tell Sam still strikes me. I know he's captain of the 100 and so on now, but he's just playing a game. He's just having fun with it. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And it's really refreshing, because it is a game to have fun with. Now, he's kind of invented this new slower ball and all this kind of stuff that we talked about in the summer. And I look at that and I think it's absolutely great. So he's still trying to move forwards as well, you see. And the people that put a ceiling on themselves, they think that's it. And my belief is you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no maintaining, because if you look to maintain and you settle for what you've got, somebody else is working bloody hard behind you, and they'll come up. So therefore you're going that way and they're going that way, sort of thing. And so examples like Sam's slower ball, me and Bo were talking about deliveries and stuff in the summer. So these people, they're normal people, just with a drive that anyone can have within them. I honestly believe that. But some people put that into action, and others just, that'd be right.
So what age do you reckon you've sort of, over the years, what age do you think you can recognise, whether it be a primary school, club cricket, development pathway, you can recognise that key element that you've just mentioned, that edge, that I want to learn, I want to improve? Because, Hugh and I both coach. We're both level 2 coaches. We coach juniors of a very similar age. And we all know that every club's got this group of 13 to 15-year-olds where you might have 3 or 4 who really want to go on. You've got a great big fat middle, as I call it, who are all sort of, they just turn up and they play, and it's great because they then play rugby in the winter and all that type of stuff. And then you got the ones at the bottom we don't try and talk about sometimes. However, where do you find that edge come? Is there something that you see in these kids or these pathway students and you go, that's a one? And it might be something that we're not seeing.
There are a few little signs I reckon that you can pick up. So, for instance, if you set up a drill where it's very difficult to achieve it, you'll see some players like, nah, it's impossible to do that. And you'll see some players that fail or not achieve whatever the drill. And it could be something as simple as hit a Yorker target. It could be a small Yorker target.
Yeah.
And you just have a look. And they bowl ball after ball after ball, and you just have a look at the body language, their language. This is impossible. What are you on about? And there'll also be some other people in that group. Whilst they might be missing, there'll be, how far did I miss by? Okay.
Yes.
They'll be thinking, okay, what do I need to do now? And sometimes all you'll see is a different outcome. So if somebody misses a Yorker target, to stick with that example, the same length, so let's say short every single ball, they're not trying anything differently. So they're not going into length bouncer, they're not bowling a kind of a flat full toss and stuff. But those players that do that, they're trying something different.
Yeah. Instead
of just doing the same every single ball. So I do think that, set up drills every now and then where it's a drill to make them fail, and you'll pick up some stuff from them. So the people that say, no, this is bloody impossible. I remember setting up a drill down at Somerset, and we started off with a 3K med ball, and then we went to a football, and then we went to a netball, and then we went to a cricket ball, and then we went to a golf ball, and that was Roelof van der Merwe. And he just would not stop until he'd hit that golf ball. So he had that steeliness. And I think, going back to your question, there's something different about them. So I think it's difficult to put an age on it. But what you do as coaches, I believe, is you set up different scenarios if they're bowling to a batter, and you set up different drills and skills and things, and they have to experience success and they have to experience failure. And you're just spotting these signs of character, trying to work things out, trying to win, trying to help their teammates. So on a bad day, when they are clearly haven't got the skills to achieve the drill, are they helping their teammates? So there's a few things that you can kind of pick up on, really, to just kind of see if they've got that in them.
Most definitely. I think I've got a drill that I use with my players in particular in the first week or two of indoor nets that does exactly that, which thankfully they don't listen to this podcast. Yeah. I'll strap the pads on and I'll go into bat and I'll be awful.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many times I'll get out.
Yeah.
But you can see them ticking, going, well, I've done something right there. It's in the right place. And if they can get me out, then it's something. And unfortunately, the bigger they get, they do it more often. But it is training them to think that way, isn't it? Rather than, this is bloody impossible, I'm not going to do it. So I think that's one of them. Q.
In terms of sort of your talent ID as you're going forwards, then we talked about this mindset. The big problem I have with fast bowling in particular is a big chunk of it's genetics. You could have a kid. There's not too many Jimmy Andersons that. Well, actually, Jimmy didn't get picked up till late, but I think he's been a fantastic bowler. But like Steve Harmison, popped up at 16, 17, didn't he, and started bowling quick, and he wanted to be a footballer. I find it really difficult to look at a group of 14-year-olds and say, which ones are going to be the ones that progress on a fast bowling pathway, because they might top out at 5'5". They might not be able to bowl quick. I mean, I don't know how much of bowling quick, I suppose, is genetics and height and other aspects.
What is quick?
Well, that's right, yeah.
I think there's an obsession with pace at the moment, and whether that's filtered down from the top, I don't know. But we know that pace makes things happen in matches at the top and all the way down through the pathway. So I believe, yes, genetics have a part to play, but that's all it is part to play. If this is where the long-term kind of view really comes into its own, I think. Because if you get hold of a bunch of players at 10, I don't think it's about ball speeds. I do think it's about movement, running well, running efficiently, running toward the target. It's about animal movements. It's about jumping, balancing, landing, being upright. I think that there's so many movement patterns that, as part of a cricket program, can be taught between 8 and 10. Because once you've got these movements in a player at 13, 14, 15, it's so much easier to train for pace if that's what you're looking for. But it's also so much easier to train for seam position and swing and accuracy and bounce. But if you've got a player that really kind of is a massive effort in their run up, it's very difficult to actually do some work with them through the crease in order to increase pace. I think that every bowler has an optimum pace, their own optimum pace. And that is down to physically, of course, technically. Do they play multi-sports? I'm a massive fan of young players playing multi-sports, I'll be honest. Because then it dives into that whole movement thing that I talked about before. I think that by the time a bowler gets to kind of 16, like EPP level, you're starting to kind of form opinions on could this bowler keep progressing with their pace? And by then, if they've done all the kind of foundational work, the emerging work, the tactical bit, by 16, I reckon you've got more of an idea. But I do think it's very difficult below that. And the only other thing to bear in mind there is that you can have an opinion on a bowler that, there's no way they're going to make it, but they're going through a growth spurt.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's really important that is built into the equation, or opinion equation. When do they come out of a growth spurt? Well, you don't know unless you're measuring it. So so that comes into it as well. So every bowler develops at different ages, depending on the maturity, the height, and all this, multi-sports and all this kind of stuff. And I think it's a danger to hang your hat on certain bowlers until they've kind of progressed through that little period as well. There's a young lad at Warwickshire, I'm not going to mention his name, that I looked at him bowl at 15. I thought, wow, multi-sports, farming background, so physically up there, knows how to move, has clearly been coached really well. So I think it's really important that we have opinions. We don't just sit on the fence, but I think it can be dangerous to verbalize those opinions too early, really.
Yeah. Pushing it forward then to, quite a lot of our audience of Premier League cricketers, failed potentially, want to be professional cricketers, so that they're obviously there's 7,000-8,000 of them, so we can't all be professional cricketers, unfortunately. But like 19, you've got the county pathway, under 18 stops at 18. Actually, it's now 19, isn't it? It's pushed forward a year, but you've dropped out. You've not had your contract. You're a seamer. If pushing it forward, somebody like yourself say, okay, I'll ring up the phone, Stuart, can you help me? Are people able to go from, with a more intense focus on their bowling at that age, go, do you know what? I want to have another go at this. I'm bowling, I don't know, let's go at 75 miles an hour. I'm not super accurate. Would you say the majority of people would be able to come to you? This isn't just a self-view, but a bowling coach with that real focus and go, actually, I'm going to improve X amount to be able to have another crack at it.
I think if somebody's got the aspiration, then they can achieve anything. If somebody's got the ambition and they are willing to be honest with themselves and work with somebody that could point them in the right direction, then I honestly believe that is still possible. The way that it would need to work, in my opinion, is you need to profile, what's the starting point? If they're unfit, overweight, don't go to the gym, don't do any running, and they've still got ambition. Of course, you work with that, but there's a number of changes that need to take place away from the cricket ground in order for them to kind of have a chance to bowl longer spells, bowl quicker, lateral movement, all that kind of stuff. So if somebody's got an ambition, and it normally shows itself when somebody's been dropped from a pathway, and something has happened to them that has hurt them. For me, it was I got sacked as a pro cricketer. So if somebody doesn't get selected or deselected from a pathway, or deselected from the third team in club cricket, and it's hurt them, if they've got something that really mattered to them and that's been taken away, and they say, right, that is enough, I think that anything is possible. But what's the start point? What is it you do want to achieve? What if you were to achieve that, what would you need? Right, what are you missing? Now let's start putting those things in place. I honestly think it's as simple as that. It's not simple, but you just need to work. What am I missing? Why has that been taken away from me? So working with a coach, I think, is the first step. The realization, that's the first thing, but working with a coach who's honest with them, sometimes brutally honest, is what needs to happen, I think.
And that want and need in particular starts at an early age. You've got to have that from the players that you're working with. And like you say, once they've been broken down, inverted commas, by failure, because at the end of the day, that's what Hugh's talking about, is failure. They've been dropped from a pathway, or, I'm going to use a name, which I don't mind using this name, he's done extremely well. Rory Hayden, who got dropped by Warwickshire a number of years ago. And then 3-4 years later, he's now signed a 2-year contract. He's worked hard non-stop through that period, 2-year contract with Derbyshire. Couldn't be more thrilled for someone like that. And it's obviously that attitude to go from that failure, because I'm sure he'd admit that, to where he's got to today that makes the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that. I love stories like that. But again, that's where you're right. I think that something's been taken away that really hurts. Then all of a sudden, it start flowing. Use me as an example. I was told I was going to play for England, like all the way through from 14, 15. So I'm always conscious of the language you talk to the players, because I didn't have to work hard. On reflection, I did not have to work very hard to get a pro contract. Things are really different now. But when it started getting difficult, I hadn't experienced that before. This is easy. I'm going to play for England. Well, I just do what I've always done. Have my sugar pasta every morning. Not to really look after that nutrition side of things. I'm very wary of the language. You don't promise anything. You say, right, well done. Tomorrow we go again. But promising something down the line, I think, can be quite dangerous, because then it's like, well, I'm really talented. I know that. It's like a 6 foot kind of 80 kilogram 15-year-old rugby player playing against other 15-year-olds that are nowhere near that. So of course, you're going to be outstanding. It's no different. So being told you're going to be brilliant, great, all that kind of stuff can also have a detrimental effect, because it's delusional.
Yeah, well, I think that comes back to that honesty. I hear it a lot. If kids have been dropped from pathways or teams or whatever, it very rarely, I'm hearing it from parents, not children on the whole, it very rarely is the child's fault as such. It's not their fault, but it's nearly always the face didn't fit, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, I didn't get a chance, didn't get this, that and the other. And in some cases that will be right, but it can't all be right. Actually, if you, like you say, if you're just honest with yourself, okay, this wasn't working. Okay, how can I get better? That's the route, isn't it? Back in. Just pushing it forward then, I'm going to take, after we talked about the 19-year-old dropped from a pathway, what about your 25-year-old, your 26-year-old, Premier League player, maybe never been on a pathway, just enjoying his cricket, doing very well. Is there, do you think, still a route into the professional game for somebody like that?
I think it's more challenging the older you get. So where are the opportunities? The opportunities at the moment is doing really well in club cricket and getting an opportunity in the Royal London, Metro Bank.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity, particularly counties that have a number of players that go to the 100. They're looking to top up really with, it's not big squads, but number of players going to the 100. There's your opportunities to potentially, if you're going really well in club cricket, to get a Metro Bank gig. And we've seen it a few times. A number of Notts, Somerset. There are examples of that. How does that happen? Well, you do really well in club cricket. Well, how do you do really well in club cricket? Well, you have to have a bit of knowledge about, I'm an opening bowler, Premier League cricket. How often do I need to bowl during the week in order every Saturday I'm fit, firing, ready to go? You probably need, a couple of training sessions in there, 2 bowls in a week. You also need to understand, right, what do I need to keep adding to my game? So you play on a Saturday. What went well? What did I find challenging? What do I need to add to my game this coming week, sort of thing? And that's how you piece together a program. How often do you need to run? So all of a sudden, technical, tactical, physical, mental, lifestyle wise, for your 26, 20, 27-year-old club cricketer, it's absolutely not impossible. And it doesn't have to be that detailed. I think simplicity is genius.
Yeah.
What's the one thing this summer I need to improve on? Well, I know that I'm bloody good with a new ball in my hand and I can swing it. How good am I when the ball is old, not doing anything? How good am I bowling at the death? How good am I at bowling to the batter or getting the in batter off strike, so I bowl more balls at the batter that I really want to bowl to? So bowlers might be really good and they're performing really well in club cricket, but are they still looking to add to their game like Bo Webster and Sam Curran and all these guys? We're talking about slightly different levels, but we're talking about exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
That's it.
100% agree with that. And I think the key for me is when you look at what's been happening in the last 2 years, in particular with the Metro Bank, we described it, and we've said it 1,000 times before, as Gilo ball to start with, because Worcester were the first on the tree. They took Tom Hinley, they took Tommy Sturgis, a fast bowler, into Worcester in 24. And then in 25, we just saw so many other counties bring these players through. In the winter between the two, you guys at Warwickshire brought Zen Malik in. Brilliant to bring him in there. We saw the guys all over the country, whether it be Nikhil Garantler at Surrey. But it does seem to be not fast bowlers generally. It tends to be batters and spinners. Is that because, do you think, the pro game, they want those, what would I describe it, that control over their fast bowling squad from an early stage, and they want to be able to tease the overs out of them during the long season as it is, because they don't look down to the Premier League, as far as I can see, for fast bowlers as much as they do batters and spinners?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in a position to be able to do that myself, so I was relying on eyes and ears from everybody else. The impression I get is there are bowlers out there.
100%.
There are bowlers that, given an opportunity, and an opportunity might just be a conversation. An opportunity might also be coming in and do some 12-man duties with the first team, bowling at lunchtime. An opportunity might be a second team game. I don't know. I do think that going back to what we touched on immediately at the start, I wonder if the slight lack of long-term programming could be part of the reason why. Because we're all looking for those shiny objects, aren't we? We're all looking for those bowlers. Adam Sylvester last year, he turned up at lunchtime and I got the gun out and he was bowling 84 miles an hour on my gun. Now, he was plucked from club cricket. He had trial elsewhere and all this kind of stuff, and it's not worked out for him. But if Adam was there are going to be other players out there. I just think maybe it just needs a little bit of commitment to get some eyes and ears out there. I remember playing club cricket when I was a pro, and after it all finished, there were county coaches watching club cricket. And Steve Perryman, I've met him a couple of times for a coffee. What a man. He and Abbas used to go and watch club cricket every Saturday. And I think maybe there's an opportunity that's being missed there now, with coaches not or counties not having a presence. It doesn't have to be the top end coaches, just having a presence, because you're relying on other people with their own opinions, really.
It's the age-old setup in football for ever has been the scouting network, hasn't it? And we know this. And I can remember amateur football in Liverpool in the 1980s, and you'd stand on, this is the top level amateur football. You could stand on the sidelines, and my dad would say, that's a Liverpool scout. And you just knew they were there. And there was so many of these guys around the country. I know they used to be there in cricket in the late 80s as well, when I was playing in the Bolton League. But they're the ones, as you say, they've disappeared, and we don't see them around the grounds. And if I take it all the way to the very top, look what Darren Lehman said during the winter. He can't remember seeing a selector at Northampton last year or see, and that says a hell of a lot if you're not spotting these players. I'm a big believer that MV play, frog box, and all of those things are brilliant, but until you see someone on the ground, that's a different ball game altogether, isn't it?
Particularly with bowlers. With bowlers.
Yeah, I think you're right. With technology, has given us the opportunity to watch club cricket from the sofa, but we can't underestimate being there. It's just that making that effort, really, isn't it? So, scouting networks they are still in place. I know that the scouts that I've had conversations with, the kind of one up north, there is that network there, and we kind of tap into them, particularly national counties level.
Yeah.
But apart from receiving recommendations, and the Warwickshire players and all the other second team players would also go back and play club cricket.
Yeah.
So you're relying on getting feedback from them, but obviously as players, they're not going to recommend
somebody to take their place.
Yeah. So there is that in there. You'd like to think it wouldn't, but who knows?
That's human. That's humanity.
Yeah. So to answer your question, bowlers are out there.
100%.
Clearly, they are out there. I often get videos sent to me by friends of mine. Barnes, what do you think of this guy? And I'm like, wow, where's he playing? What's he doing? Is he keen? All this kind of stuff. They are out there. I don't know what the answer is, other than those players, what are they missing? How can they put themselves in front of pairs of eyes that can give them those opportunities? It's not an easy one, really, but if somebody, I always believe that if somebody has a burning ambition, they will not stop. So who are the right people? Who are the people that I need to speak to in order to put me in front of the right people? I still think it's down to that. Maybe it's just a little bit more difficult these days now than it was before, but it doesn't mean it is impossible.
Totally get that, Stuart, 100%. I think you've perfectly teased us into what will be the episode next month, when we start translating all the ideas that you have from elite coaching back into what is Premier League club level winter work, getting ready for the summer, because there's so much that you've done there that literally, you're right, if those guys, if the guy who's 18, 19, 21 is serious about becoming a pro in a few years' time, there might be only one or two things he's got to do in this next 8 to 12 weeks before the season starts, and build that opportunity up and get that second 11th game and just to do it. So if I was to ask you a final question in this episode, just sum up your coaching philosophy, therefore, before we go to talk about that next time round. Sum up your philosophy in just sort of one or two quick sentences, because I think you've nailed a lot of it in there. But give me the Stuart Barnes sort of 15-second pitch, if you know where I'm coming from.
It's quite simple. It never used to be, but relationship, coach-player relationship is everything. So gain rapport and connect with the player. You know, what are the common things, what we're moving towards, both of us, to work with the player on those things. So you connect, observe, connect, and then I'm then giving them that entitlement to get out there and just implement all the things that we're working on. In a sentence, that's pretty much it.
Perfect. Hey, great chatting, Stuart. Look forward to chatting with you next month. And we're going to talk all things about bowling indoors and that thing that you coaches love doing, getting everyone ready to getting them outdoors, mate.
Thank you. Been a pleasure. Thank you.